yourself what you need. Are you safe in your own skin, you know? Nothing in the darkness that ain't here when the light's pouring. You've been waiting for that sunshine, baby. Dread the coming rain. Listen to that thunder rolling around those clouds again. Let me lift your burden. Let me take the weight. Wanna hold you high above me now. Let you fly away. Wherever these troubles flow, it's just from the sky. All your pain forgotten and your worry put aside. Smell the breeze and taste the air. Fill up your heart with weightless things, feeling blow away your care. Got no heart to dream, girl, toast the tank, down up and run. Right around that lake this evening, let the moon shine, guide us home. Whisper that you love me, nothing else is real. Wrap your arms around me, baby, eyes closed to help you feel. Set your mind at ease. The rules your deacon preaches got you tied in useless knots. You alone, girl, hold the key to spring the locks. You know that love's the answer to every fiber of your heart. The gods will smile upon you and your chains will fall apart. Baby, let your burden, give it all to me. Not one tear, remember, nothing but today. Your sun is warm and shining, morning bright and new. Dream again, my sweetheart, we'll make it all come true. Let me lift your burden, give it all to me. Not one tear, remember, nothing but today. Your sun is warm and shining, morning bright and new. Dream again, my sweetheart, we'll make it all come true.
I'm a member of the Board of Trustees, and it's my privilege to welcome you here today. Come, whoever you are welcome here. No matter your age, your size, the color of your eyes, your hair, your skin, you are welcome here. No matter whom you love, how you speak, or whatever your abilities, you are welcome here. You are welcome here whether you come with laughter in your heart or tears. You are welcome here. If you come here with an open mind, a loving heart, and willing hands, you are welcome here.
Last night, did you watch the moon as we did rise up over the mountains? And so, did you see in the shadows of its face another face? Or did you see a figure, as we grew to see it in Japan, of a rabbit making rice cakes? Have you been planting vegetables and flowers? Did you go to yard sales yesterday, especially the one put on by our youth? We have more stuff because of that. But great stuff. We are blessed today because after the service, we're going to have a maple dance organized by Cups. And I'd like to thank Leslie Hugo especially, and for the beautiful altar that she made for us today. Neither of these are unfortunately on our order of service, so please give thanks to them for this. We are blessed to be here together, to worship, to shape worth. All of these things are why we gather. And I give you today the words of William F. Schultz, a Unitarian Universalist minister who is also part of the UU Service Committee that is bringing aid to Nepal at this time. He wrote, "Come into this place of peace and let its silence heal your spirit. Come into this place of memory and let its history warm your soul. Come into this place of prophecy and power and let its vision change your heart." To begin this process of heart changing, I invite you to open your hymnals to hymn number 1024, that you see and ones that you don't see. But first I'm going to tell you that this has been a horrible, horrible time for directors of religious education in many parts of the West. Our own Liz Martin has a contusion on her leg that is causing a lot of pain and awful stuff. And she got it doing something that she loves to do. She loves to play soccer. And somebody kicked her when she was playing soccer, and that became something really awful and painful. And then there was another religious educator in, I think it was Logan, who fell over a lawnmower and did something else to her leg. So, and there was somebody else who had something, but I can't remember. So there've just been a lot of awful things, and that made me remember what happened when I was about 7 years old, and my friend Kim Story broke her leg. She had this wonderful cast on her leg. How many of you have had a cast? Wow, yes. Well, I've never had a cast, and when I was 7, I had very serious cast envy. Because I had been brought up to give no trouble to anyone. So, in most situations, nobody asked me, "Patty, how are you doing? Are you okay? Is there anything I can help you with?" They just assumed I would be okay and sturdy, and mostly I was. But then when Kim Story broke her leg and she had that cast, and everyone was around her saying, "Oh, Kim, how are you? How is everything? Can I help you do something?" And her parents let her stay in her room and read, which is what I wanted to do. But my parents made me do stuff I didn't want to do. And so you know what I did? I got on my bicycle and I rode really fast, and I went to the end of our street, and I went up the hill, and I crashed my bicycle because I hoped to break my leg. And I went home limping with my leg, feeling so terrible and broken. And my mother said, "Oh," just what I wanted to hear. "Oh, Patty, are you okay? What's wrong?" And I said, I'm certain I've broken my leg." And so she very sweetly took me to the hospital, and the doctor even gave me an x-ray. All those days when everyone got x-rays for everything. He gave me an x-ray, and then he said, "No, Patty has a couple of bruises, but she has not broken her leg." So I never did get my cast. made me think, actually not at the time, but looking back at my school, there were people with children, fellow students, who had all kinds of different problems. There was one little boy who couldn't hear out of one ear, and that made him move his head. And people were not kind to him. And there was another boy who couldn't do things very well, and people were not kind to him. And then there was me, who just felt like I disappeared. So because today we're going to be talking about all of the things that people bring to the world, and many of those things are hidden from others, that I want this to be a time when we remember that everyone has something difficult, and that maybe we should learn from the way we treat people with casts, that we should treat everyone like that. So that is my message for today. If you meet someone new, treat them like they're wearing a cast. And then little girls won't have to go out and try to break their legs. Thank you all for listening. And now we're going to sing the children downstairs.
A letter to Andy's mother. We met 16 years ago in the principal's office of the elementary school after a dramatic incident had occurred between our two 8-year-old boys. Emotions were palpable as the lunchroom scene was described. You were angry, of course, as any mother would have and should have been. My son had lashed out at yours at the lunch line, grabbed his eyeglasses from his face, which broke the glasses and knocked my son over. The especially offensive detail of all was the fact that our son has Down syndrome. How could my son have lashed out at yours? Though I have not spoken to or seen you since that time, my husband is the one who coordinated the formal apology and replacement of your son's eyeglasses. I have yearned to have a confidential and candid conversation with you all these years. During that meeting in the office 16 years ago, I knew that we needed to remain focused on the facts of the incident, and I did not want to detract at all from the need for my son to be held completely responsible for his actions. However, what I did not feel I could express during that time, but what I really wanted you to know, was the fact that my son has a disability also. While your son's disability includes physical characteristics that are visible to most people, my son's disability is largely invisible. There are no physical characteristics that communicate to others the fact that my son has an autism spectrum disorder. While he is intellectually gifted, he has classic autistic impairments that result in significant anxiety and social behavioral difficulties, which manifested most significantly during his younger elementary school years. Your son was well supported in the nurturing environment of open classroom, where students and adults were all well aware of his abilities and needs. However, because my son has a very high IQ and was verbally advanced as a child, most adults, including teachers and administrators, really didn't believe that my son had a disability that required any accommodation. I learned later from a parent volunteer that the whole school had participated in rousing relay games on the morning before the lunchroom incident. There are many aspects of such an activity that produce difficulty for someone with an autistic spectrum disorder. The noise, the chaos, the physical demands, unpredictability, and peer pressure. Your son was encouraged and celebrated in his participation. In comparison, my son was awkward and overwhelmed, became rigid, and ultimately was ostracized. While I am absolutely not trying to provide an excuse for my son's behavior on that day, I suspect that our experiences and emotions as parents of a child with a disability are not all that different. I hope that Andy is doing well. Sincerely, another mother.
to a famous garden that drew tour buses from all over Japan, there was a small, elegant one that we liked much better. It was empty of tourists, and it had all the beauty, we thought, of that more famous garden. There were stone pathways set into the mossy garden floor that led through and around to places where there was a view or where you could sit and contemplate. Usually in May, when the iris were at their peak, we visited, and when we did, we sought out an old moss-covered lantern in a quiet corner by the tea house. In recent years, someone had discovered that Mary, the mother of Jesus, had been carved into the stone at the back of the lantern's base. That meant that someone in the house had been a Christian, a forbidden faith until close to the turn of the 20th century. They had been a kapure Christian, a forbidden Christian, a hidden Christian. No other traces of that person were left, only the lantern. Discovering such an identity during the feudal era when it was carved would have meant certain death. We sat in the garden and wondered about that person. We felt how lonely that person must have been, and we felt wonder at the courage that it took to carve that symbol and create a secret place of worship, a dangerous place of worship. Throughout the ages, people have hidden aspects of themselves in order to survive, and this continues to be true. And my first question to all of you is this: what do you struggle in accepting in yourself? Do you have a hidden identity within yourself? 12-step programs are great teachers for all of us. They teach that to facilitate healing around addiction, the first step is claiming your hidden identity. Without this step, the others cannot follow. So I ask you again, what do you struggle in accepting in yourself? This is inner work, but it also has elements of community. To grapple with self-identity, we eventually need others. And in 12-step programs, as you progress, you become a mentor for others who are coming in. Have any of you ever had a diagnosis that you couldn't believe? There could be words coming from within yourself, addict, in one or more of the multitude of ways we humans experience addiction. Or perhaps a word was welling up inside you, one of those LGBTQ words, and the growing number of letters is a sign that those hidden identities are coming out and that we are finding more and more complexity. Or, and possibly and, have you heard a diagnosis from a health professional? Cancer, AIDS, hepatitis, liver cirrhosis, lupus, MS, macular degeneration, bipolar, borderline personality disorder, Asperger's syndrome, Alzheimer's. Sometimes our partner in life asks us for a divorce, and I think that can be similar to that kind of feeling that we get with a diagnosis. And in that moment, when the word was there, and you were there in that place with that word that doesn't seem like it means anything to who you are, and you're struggling with it, did you experience that, oh no, or oh yes, now everything makes sense? Or Perhaps you experienced all of those things at once, and the beginning of a long process began to happen, different for each of us, and hopefully, if we can stick with it long and diligently enough, we can arrive at a point of acceptance. When Susan Sontag, a great thinker who has been my hero since I read her first book many years ago, was diagnosed with cancer, and her philosophical battle with the way we see cancer gave birth to an amazing book, Illness as Metaphor. In that book, she clarified her encounter with the culture around cancer, and thereby she changed the way the world thought about cancer. And it was also how she survived. And she helped me survive, for her words rang true to me in my own struggles with coming to terms with myself, even though cancer was not a part of that. If you don't have any illness or difference in gender, sexuality, addiction, or you are not struggling to have a skinny body, then you still have what all humans have. You live with the passage of time. I seriously grapple with my identity the year before I reach that decade mark. Anyone else in here do that? I see a lot of hidden identities. As I approached 30, I had to confront all the things that I had said about those old 30-year-olds, and that feeling that I hadn't done enough to show for my age. And if we're lucky, we figure out a way of coming to peace with that number, that strange number that means us. And then, if we're lucky, we get all the way to 80 or 90 or 104, like my great-grandmother, who was always surprised by her age. And I saw, when my own mother turned 80, I saw her making adjustments, doing inner work, because 80, no matter how you look at it, feels seriously close to death. And in that grappling with numbers, there can be a rebirth, a resurrection into new life. So how do you feel about the age you are? Is that your hidden identity? Sometimes I think it's mine. The world is changing because people are coming out about their identities. Bruce Jenner courageously came out as a woman and expressed how difficult it was to come to terms with his hidden identity. Yay, Bruce! And we have in that reading today, written by an anonymous mother, but a real mother, about something that really happened. We feel her suffering on behalf of her son and his hidden identity. She hopes for a place for her son where the whole of who he is can be accepted. But because his identity is hidden, it's hard for people to reach understanding. Do you have, or have you ever known anyone who has a hidden identity, or who has a child or brother or sister or parent with a hidden identity? Would you mind if we had a show of hands? Maybe nobody told you. It's been interesting, though, in the past 10 years. Lots of hidden things have come up in my own family. And as a community, we work together to be allies. We took this great step to put in an elevator and a family bathroom. And I also remember the days when I came to church and there was a woman who has a back problem, but she was out renewing those handicapped symbols on the blacktop out there so that they would shine brightly for people who needed them. And speaking of handicapped symbols, I want to tell you about my friend's sister who parks very shyly in the handicapped spots next to the supermarket, and she emerges from her car beautiful. She walks like who she is, an expert dancer of the tango, and her hair and face are always carefully made up, and she suffers from a rare heart disease that limits how far she can walk and how much she can carry. What we also do not see is that she is a survivor of sexual abuse and assault. And I wonder how many people give her a dirty look when they see her walking in from a car parked so close. I wonder about the young man who seems a little different, who walks up to us without looking at us and then touches our arm and says words that make no sense to us. And I wonder, could he be the beloved autistic brother of my niece, my nephew, and she wrote of how being his sister has changed the way she entered into a marriage commitment, a beautiful wedding that Lou and I attended in October. She said this: "Our marriage is typical in many ways, but our responsibility one responsibility that is unique to our marriage is the recognition that someday my brother Madison will be our responsibility." Madison is severely autistic. Courageous parents and brothers and sisters are showing us how we can be allies, and by doing so are expanding who is our brother and our sister and our parent. In 1980, Nancy Brinker promised her dying sister Susan that she would do everything in her power to end breast cancer forever. In 1982, not that long ago, that promise became the Susan G. Komen Organization and the beginning of a global movement. This work has also released the stigma around breast cancer that was there in 1982. And has allowed women to be open about being breast cancer survivors. And when the participants in those walks gather around, we are cheering each other as if we are all members of the same family. The song we sang, "Wade in the Water," grew out of slavery. And that part about troubling the water, do you remember that part, troubling the water? It comes from a passage in the New Testament about the pool of Bethesda. We visited that pool in Jerusalem, and it is a place where the disabled, people with disabilities, gathered, and at certain times of the year, an angel came down and stirred up and troubled the waters, and whoever stepped in was healed and made whole. I believe that when we expand our minds and hearts to the whole of other people, then that is what we are doing. We are troubling the water. We are creating a place within which healing can happen. We do this when we offer a party, as one I saw recently on the listserv, that offers cocktails and mocktails. This is a message that if you don't drink for whatever reason, there is a place for you at this party. We do this at our bread ceremony, when we offer gluten-free bread. We do this when we encounter something we don't understand in others, perhaps someone being forgetful, and we simply sit as we do or did with our own fathers and mothers, and as Christine Hurrell expressed yesterday at the memorial service to her father, Brian Kelly, who died after more than a decade with Alzheimer's. When he kept asking a question, she simply kept answering. She did not turn away from him. She kept loving him. He was a deeply believing Catholic, but I want you to imagine that he could come among us, and we would see little by little that he was asking the same question over and over again. And I invite you to think about how you could stay engaged with him and not turn away when you see him, but continue to offer love. Let us boldly imagine how the world would change if we could look at that boy who did something we couldn't understand and see him as a mother sees a beloved child, a sister sees a brother through eyes of compassion. This is the work that we need to do. This is where our inner work could lead. This is what happens in the experience of enlightenment or the Satori of Buddhism. What happens is that those walls disappear and we are no longer separated from the rest of humanity. Our hearts become one. The world becomes whole. And at the heart of that vision is finding a way to accept ourselves. For without our inner work of self-acceptance, the hatred or lack of acceptance we have for ourselves bubbles up in the way we are with others. Brené Brown describes this as second-hand smoke. What must each of us do in this work of acceptance in the world? What hidden identity do we need to claim in our own lives in order to bring compassion to all the hidden identities we encounter in our families, in our church communities, and in the world? And your grappling with whatever that is could be a piece of the puzzle for others. You will inspire people with your courage, just as that Mary carved in the back of the lantern in that garden inspired two strangers centuries later visiting a garden on the other side of the world. May we do this work, and may it be so. Amen. And now, I invite you, with all of the rousing feelings you're getting, to stand in body or spirit, and let us sing together the closing hymn, number 1028, The Fire of Commitment.